Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Ryan Burgess. Just sitting here rapping with my buddy Jesse, talking about life, mindset, perspective, transitioning through different phases of life, talking about possibly coaching, public speaking, doing all kinds of stuff. So stay tuned. Catch me next, right here on the Jesse T Show.
Ryan Burgess, welcome to the Jesse T Show, brother.
Jesse, thanks so much for having me, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for making the time.
Yeah, man, it's my pleasure, man. And we were just kicking it off kind of before we hit record, and we were talking about how we got connected, which is a gentleman by the name of Aaron Velke, who is an amazing human being. And he's someone who, immediately I hit it off with. You've known him too. He's a mutual connection. And, we were talking about how, when you have certain people in your life that are good people, first and foremost, that are trustworthy in what they say and what they're going to do, they tend to run in the circles of the same types of people. It's kind of, you are who you hang around. And so for him to have introduced me to you and a few other people, I've been very grateful because you all have been amazing people. So if you could just share a little bit of context as to who you are and what it is that you're trying to do in the world.
Sure, man. Yeah, absolutely. And a quick shout out to Aaron for helping make this happen. I really appreciate it. The guy is, he's a home run hitter, man. I mean, he's doing some real work. He's making some real progress. He's impacted lives, probably more lives than I can even count. The success of his business, his coaching, just his personality is, magnetic. I mean, just he speaks with such conviction and passion, and you can tell it's poured into every ounce of his work. So he deserves every ounce of success that he's getting and will continue to get. And for fellow CEOs like yourself, I know that you have your company, 46 and 2. Congratulations on that. That's awesome.
Thanks, brother.
Talk about financials and, just things like that, things that really matter to people in life. And we can touch on money a little bit later, but for you and Aaron and other powerful business owners and just business people like that, making a real impact, that's what the world needs more of.
I appreciate that acknowledgement, brother. And where was it that you first connected with Aaron?
I actually met Aaron, I think it was about 10 plus years ago. He dated a friend of mine. And so he and I, met through her and they dated for a while and, hung out a couple times, and then they went their separate ways. And I kind of followed Aaron a little bit. I mean, I didn't really talk to him a lot, but I always knew who he was. And every once in a while we drop a line, and once his coaching and personal development and speaking and all the other things that he's doing, it seems like the guy's doing a million things, but he really started hitting it pretty heavy, and he started making some real progress. So he's a home run hitter, man. I mean, I followed him, and he's just done really well for himself, and again, made a lot of impact for a lot of people. And I couldn't be more proud of the guy. And the fact that he took the time out of his schedule to connect me with you, another CEO, and again, a guy who's incredibly busy, to make time for me, I'm more than humbled, man. Thank you,
man. And likewise. And it's time is precious. It's the only gift that we're given that we can never make more of or get back. So definitely mindful of yours as well, and grateful for you. And so did you meet with him? I think he's from the Northeast. Correct me if I'm wrong, but where did you? Are you from there? And talk to us about your story and your upbringing a little bit.
Yeah. So basically, I was born in Maryland. I was raised in a town called Ellicott City. And I met Aaron when I was living up in the Maryland area. I recently moved to South Carolina about 5 years ago, June of 2017, and came down here. My girlfriend and I, we had our baby boy. We've just kind of been trying to do that, doing it, man. I mean, it's just, it's tough, as being a father yourself. Like there's no manual, there's no instruction guide. So it's, it's some serious on the job training for sure. But, and we've been together for a while, and, it's a true blessing. It's funny how it all works out, though. I mean, the fact that Aaron, who I met 10 plus years ago, now has had such an impact in my life personally within the past, couple years, more so than ever, and has now led me to this moment here with you. It's funny how things come full circle. And, again, I loved Maryland. I miss a lot of the people up there, my family, my friends. Back in June of 2017, like I said, I moved down here, became a dad, had to say goodbye to the only life I ever really knew. My family, my friends, had to sell my house, had to convince my boss at the time to be able to keep my job, and just basically had a lot going on all within a 6-month period. And it was a whirlwind. It's been a whirlwind ever since. I love it. I wouldn't trade a minute of it. The good days and the bad, just like anybody else. But I'm incredibly blessed, man. Like I'm driven by gratitude. I'm obsessed with perspective. It's something that I've really honed in on a lot over the past several years. I've kept below the radar because I know a lot of people think it's kind of hokey and a bunch of fluff bullshit. But for me, going through my own personal journey, man, just, an attitude of gratitude, so to speak, and what that really did for me. Because I know that being in a transition point in my life now, the idea of having gratitude for everything I have, even though some things are missing, it's what keeps you going. And I remember 12 years ago when I was in a similar position, I just had the complete opposite mindset, and I was getting the complete opposite of what I wanted. And what I didn't realize, what I had to step up and realize on my own, is that I was my own worst enemy.
Yep.
And it takes a lot of balls for people to admit that, but I really was. And I had to do an inventory of my life. I had to really break down everything from just what I was doing in life, where I was going, what direction I was headed, what kind of money I wanted to make, the relationships I was in. I mean, everything.
Yep.
And once I kind of navigated those waters, I really had an opportunity to gain some clarity, which is huge for a lot of people, because for a long time, I was just like a leaf blowing around in the wind, man. I never knew where I was going to end up next. I struggled a couple times professionally, which led me to struggle a couple times financially. And again, we can talk about that in a little bit, but I've been through it, but I don't say woe is me, because there's a lot of people who have been through a lot worse. In fact, I know a bunch of them, and the light of perspective is always shining in my face. And I know people who are dealing with aggressive forms of cancer. I have a friend, she lives in Florida. She is the mother of 4 kids. She's a single mom of 4 kids because her husband passed away in a tragic car accident. Just some real like hardcore shit that people are going through. So the idea of struggling a little bit professionally or kind of navigating your way through the world doesn't seem nearly as bad when you think about stuff like that.
No question, man. And that's, it's a journey that you've been on that's helped to give you that perspective, and gratitude is, it can be hokey or cliche if you give it that perspective. But if you realize how powerful gratitude is, and if you realize how powerful that mindset is behind it, it really can change your life and those that you come in contact with. And a lot of times people that have been on their journey, that when they do struggle in their lives or their businesses or their relationships or, anything like that, gratitude a lot of time it's hard to have, but then it's a lot of times the only thing that people do have in those moments. And there was a time in my recent, past, probably 3 or 4 years ago, where I was really, really going through a tough time. And, I had a lot of things, right? But like, no gratefulness for it. And, was really in a place where waking up every morning, I was like, well, what the hell am I going to do with my day? Like I wasn't inspired, but, not that I'm a huge fan of Ed Milet, but he's not a bad guy. Just I don't follow his stuff. But there was something he said that came through to me, and it said it's talking about stacking gratitude. Yeah. And stacking gratitude is where if you're alive, and that's all you can muster as being grateful and stepping into that feeling of being alive, that's where you start. And you start. Let's just say that's the first step, going back to a positive mentality. And then if you could say, well, my body, I have an able body. Okay, so I'm alive and I have an able body. And if you don't, you don't. But if you do, great. So that's the second step back to gratitude. And then eventually you can start every day, if you can really come up with something that's powerful. I have, if it's my kids, or if it's, this opportunity or whatever it is, you stack this gratitude. So eventually you kind of get to a place where every day you're grateful again, and you're thankful, and you have perspective that it could be way worse, no matter what you're going through, as hell as it could be in that moment, not to diminish the pain or the teaching of that moment. It could be way worse. And so if you have that perspective, it helps you get out of those moments a little bit more gracefully, a little bit more in lockstep with authenticity. So you don't become someone who's like really, big ego, or someone who doesn't know how to relate to people. And I think that that's indicative, as you mentioned, through these different pieces to your story, that gratitude has been this through line to be able to, okay, this is where I want to be. This is what I'm doing. This is what's going on. I can be grateful for X, Y, Z, and this can help you get back into alignment with where you want to go. And so, couldn't agree with you more there. As far as coming from Maryland, this is coming from a Boston guy that moved to Georgia.
Oh, okay.
For a guy that moved from Maryland to South Carolina, A, why, and B, what was the reason, the impetus to go? Because these are pretty much two different places, unless it's like a rural part of Maryland and it's kind of somewhat but where did you end up in South Carolina, and what brought you down there?
So I live in a town called Myrtle's Inlet, South Carolina, which is about 20 minutes south of Myrtle
Beautiful.
Beach. And so, I mean, it's not bad. Having the beach about 5 minutes from your doorstep is a pretty sweet deal.
It is beautiful.
I mean, and to be honest with you, I don't take advantage of it enough. Like my girlfriend and I, we could definitely go there more often, but sometimes just, life gets in the way and we kind of fall into an attitude of complacency because it's basically in our backyard. We'll just do it tomorrow, or we'll just do it next weekend. Yep. And, we eventually get over there and we have some time, but, man, I mean, it's beautiful down here. It was a big transition for me. Again, I miss my family in Maryland greatly. I miss my friends. But the idea of living in South Carolina is something I wouldn't trade for anything in the world. I've always wanted to live down south. I've always wanted to have a pool in my backyard. And, Heather and I were very fortunate to have that. Again, with the beach 5 minutes away, and for a while I was able to work from home for a handful of years. I was always wanted to be able to do that, the flexibility and freedom to do that.
Nice.
So I was given that opportunity. Again, man, talking about stacking gratitude. It's just, I had so many things to be grateful for, and South Carolina brought all those things together. And again, Heather and I, we had our son, Matthew, he's 5, just turned 5 in August. So she and he, and it all came together, and she's the reason I came down. And her parents are spectacular. Her family's spectacular. They could not be more gracious. They're loving. They've accepted me as one of their own from day one. That has been more humbling than anything. And I know through certain points in my life, I've had certain people, say some things and kind of throw some jabs and judge and all those other things. But I mean, they've been absolutely fantastic and as gracious as anyone could ask for. And I'm just so blessed because of that. You had mentioned something about Milet. I mean, I followed him, for a while, but all those guys, I mean, you're a CEO, so you follow those guys, you're financially, oriented. So you understand everybody from Milet to Tony to Gary Vaynerchuk to Grant Cardone to Tom Bilyeu, Kevin O'Leary, Mark Cuban, Shaq, Kevin Hart, The Rock, Lisa Nichols, Lauren Zander. I mean, all these people who are in the self-development, whether you're a professional athlete, celebrity, life coach, CEO, entrepreneur, I've studied all of them. And I continue studying them. I mean, they're super successful. They've made their stamp on their industry. They've impacted a lot of people by either whether it's giving them jobs by starting companies or whether they've just transcended things. Like, I mean, for example, I look at somebody like Shaq. I mean, Shaq is absolutely amazing. I know a lot of people just thought that he was just a basketball player and he was going to make his millions playing in the league and then he was going to kind of fade off into the sunset. But to his credit, he's become, I should say, one hell of a businessman and has really increased his net worth through many business ventures. And just, I admire what he's done. I mean, anybody that you can really, success leaves clues, as they say. So anyone that you can learn from their trials and tribulations. For me, I'm a journey guy. I'm not a destination guy. It's easy to see all these dudes when they're making hundreds of millions of dollars. But how did they get to that point? When were they like me? What did they go through when they were at my age or in my kind of status in life, so to speak, when they were struggling, kind of trying to find their way? What were their habits? What were their rituals? Who did they learn from? What books did they read? What kind of workouts did they do? What kind of diets were they on? Like every little thing that you can think about. Like I study for, people like that because, hey, I'm always willing to learn. I'm definitely not the smartest guy in the room, not to be self-deprecating, but that's just truth. I can always learn from somebody. I don't care whether you're older, younger, male, female, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, if you're successful, I want to pick your brain for sure.
Having a student mentality is one of the best ways to go through life. And you hit the nail on the head. It's not, the destination is great, but it's about the journey. And the journey is the prize. And the experience of going through these growth periods and learning and being able to have a beginner's mind. And, when you become an expert, the trick is, how do I get back to having a beginner's mind? Because an expert only sees one way to get things done, where a beginner sees 10,000 ways to get things done. Yeah. And so many of the great philosophers and business people will will say this, that, how do I go from everything I've just cultivated and curated to become the top of my industry to now starting over fresh again? So some people might pick up martial arts, they might pick up painting, they may pick up something else and really have to start over again. But what happens is, like you said, success leaves clues, and these principles they've employed along the way help them to get to a much more expert level in their next venture. They try a lot faster because they've already done it before. And I love that you bring up Shaq, because Shaq is he's someone that I'm not really I don't have idols, so to speak. I grew up loving Michael Jordan. That was just my era, greatest basketball player of all time. I grew up for the last 20 something years watching Tom Brady kick ass with the Patriots, and this was great. But I've kind of since got off the train of really getting into those things. But what you can say about Shaq has always been enterprising. Shaq has been, he came in through sports, NBA, one of the greatest of all time. He was a rapper back in the day, pretty off-beat, but he was a rapper. He was, he got into the sneaker business, and he's sold so many sneakers through Walmart, and he's a give back kind of guy. And this is why I love him, because every sneaker that goes through being sold, he wanted to make sure that, because he could have got a sneaker deal anywhere. He could have got a sneaker deal through any company. And he decided to make his own shoe so the kids that were like him at one point could afford these sneakers and have a pair of basketball sneakers to go play with. And there's all these stories, because he lives in Atlanta, or at least most of the time, but there's all these stories about him in Atlanta going around. Well, like, he'll be in like a Walmart, and he'll see like a single mom with her kid, and he'll just buy her like tens of thousands of dollars worth of stuff because he can. And then, and now he does fun stuff like he's a DJ, right? And so he's doing all these like EDM festivals, and like he's also a rascal. He's a big kid. He's a student at heart. He got his doctorate not too long ago. So he's not Dr. Shaquille O'Neal. I mean, he has this thirst for learning. So going back to that student mentality and personal development, everybody at any capacity can learn. Anybody can start anew. Anybody can take from somebody else's experience and add that piece to their game. And so the question I'm thinking about when it comes to you and your journey and these things that you've experienced is, where has personal development been for you? And what are some of the things that you do to augment your life, to bring you a better quality of life, whether it's relationships, whether it's health and wellness, whether it's mindset, whether it's stepping in this future of teaching and grooming other people based on your experience? What has your experience been with personal development that's brought you that kind of background?
Well, again, with someone like Aaron, who you and I obviously are mutual friends with, he's probably the best example I know. Again, I've never been to a Tony Robbins seminar or anything like that. I've never met Tony himself or anyone along those lines. But for someone like Aaron, yourself, who are big time up and comers, who are really making moves, really doing some real work, making some real progress, seeing how seriously he took personal development for himself, you can tell the authenticity. And I think that's what resonates with me, was not just his authenticity, but authenticity in general. I think, again, success leaves clues. When vulnerability to me and authenticity are two of the biggest things that can propel people to the next level if they really tap into them correctly.
Yep.
So for example, for me, again, like we were talking, before we came on the air, I'm not a millionaire. I'm not a celebrity. I'm not super famous, but I've just been through a lot of shit that I know a lot of the ordinary people in life go through. Your neighbor, your friend, your cousin, maybe another coworker, maybe you yourself at some point, like you said, we all go through trials and tribulations, and it's relatability. Can I relate to this guy? We were talking earlier about money. It's kind of tough for people who are trying to keep the lights on and pay their car insurance each month to really listen seriously to someone who flew in on their private jet, right? They can't relate to that. So when you truly talk and just have normal conversation, and you speak from a place of experience, not a place of judgment, the walls come down immediately. Yep. And that's how you connect with people. And so for me, the authenticity of my vulnerability, I tell people straight up, hey, here's what I fucked up on in life. And it's just truth. Like, here are the mistakes I've made. Here's why I went wrong. Here's what I learned from it. Here's what I'm hoping to never experience again. Because when I have experiences, I let them hit me pretty hard. Meaning I wanted to make a permanent mental stamp on my memory, so that way, if I do like that again, I can kind of deviate to a different course because I've seen the signs before. And if the feeling because like Tony Robbins said, feeling follows focus. So if I think about what's really messed me up in life or where it went wrong or what really kind of took me off the rails, and I associate the feeling and remember the association of the feeling that followed that, then I can go a completely different direction instantaneously. So for me, it's telling my story. I want to get a story out there. And again, not because I'm the man or, I'm somebody special, but I want anyone who's watching, and I know that you have a lot of followers. I want anyone who's watching to know that it's okay. You're not going to swing, and hit it out of the park every time. You're not going to bat 1,000. We all mess up in life. And Aaron even said, you got to fail your way to success. And one of the biggest things for me is finding something that you're genuinely passionate about. Because I can tell you, I've worked in the corporate world for 20 years. And I've bounced around a couple times, been laid off due to downsizing and things like that, whatever the reason is. And it hurts. It's a kick in the nuts. And then you worry about financially where you're going to go and how you're going to pay bills and all the normal feelings that, strike stress and anxiety and worry and all those other. And I lived like that. And I was like, what am I doing? Like everybody talks about the law of attraction, right? So your thoughts have to be congruent with what you want. And naturally, the feelings follow your congruent thoughts. So if you're thinking about things or people that stress you out, give you anxiety, make you feel worried and panicked and all that, that's exactly how you're going to feel. But the problem was I didn't know how to get out of that because I had people in my life who were telling me you should do this or you should do that. And even some of the people who I love the most, who I respected the most, everything. It's just that they didn't know what I really wanted. And that's not a knock to them because I didn't know what I really wanted. But for the first time in my life, the idea of suffering in different ways, and I'm not trying to sound dramatic, but I'm just saying we've all suffered in some ways. My suffering is what leads me to want to help. And again, coming from a place of just being a normal everyday dude, living a normal everyday life, I want to make an impact. I want to create value for people. I've helped countless people over the years. And whether it's talking to them about relationships, their job, their kids having behavioral issues at school, money issues. And again, I'm not an expert on money by any means, but just like, hey, man, I'm here. I'm a sounding board. You don't have to be afraid. Stop worrying about what people think. Judgment will cripple you if you let it. And the external validation that for so many people, they feel that they need, it's absolute garbage. But because this thing is that helps me, Jess, to be honest with you, is when I talk to people and whether they're, talking down to me or clowning on me or doing whatever, I'm like, who are you, dude? If I put your ass under the microscope for 30 seconds, I'm sure I could find a few decisions that I'd be like, are you serious?
Yeah.
I'm sure I could find a few blunders and mistakes that you've made. So, we all talk from our own self-made ivory towers, but yet we demonize each other for all the same things. It's just so crazy.
Yeah. You had mentioned suffering and going through those trials and tribulations personally, that leads to relatability, but it also relates to empathy if you allow it to, and being able to share your story, connect with other people, understand from a first person point of view, maybe not the exact same thing, but something similar that you've been through, and then on the other side being able to do the same thing. And then you start to build these connections of understanding of relationship that are powerful, and having that vulnerability, which I call courage in action. Vulnerability is a display of courage in action because you are bearing your soul. You're putting yourself out there, trusting in the moment, trusting in yourself, trusting in the person that you can kind of be held in a safe way. Someone may, or you're believing that moment will be better for it, and it absolutely does create relatability and empathy. And I think that being able to have those moments, to be human is to suffer. And we all have our own suffering. We all have our own, as there's a gentleman who's a spiritual leader. His name is Ram Dass. We all have our own curriculum that we've been given. And the curriculum is the shit that we go through and the shit we need to experience so that we can grow through into those empathetic, relational states that allow us to just do life better, whether it's with our loved ones, the people we do business with, ourselves, right? There's a book called Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. It's absolutely changed my life, and it's changed many people's lives, and people that I know that are on their own healing journey and their mental or personal development growth track. I always talk about that book because specifically as men, I'm assuming we're about the same age, close to it. We weren't taught. Most men, 9 out of 10 men weren't taught how to say, I love myself, or to not suppress their emotions, to bottle up their emotions. Right. And it's something where we start to get into these teenage years, testosterone kicks in, and, bad choices and all these things can happen. And we could get wayward, and we can make some bad decisions. Yeah. But it's on us, you and I and people of our generation and other people, to change that narrative and to change the paradigm through our own example. And so when you talk about personal development, you talk about growing through suffering. Now we become the elders with the wisdom to say, hey, listen, not that we're the smart know-it-alls, but like, we've been through some shit. Right. I can relate to you. Let me tell you how I wouldn't have fucked up like I did last time if I had a second chance to go around. And I'll say, from my experience, man, all the shit that I've experienced, and I gave you a couple pieces before we jumped on the show. I wouldn't change it for the world, because as hard as it was to get through, it was necessary, number one, but it's been able to bring me to that state of relatability and empathy and being able to connect with people. So it's a beautiful arc. And I think that where you're heading with your story and your personal narrative is getting into a place where you not only have you help people along the way through their own trials and tribulations, but be more focused in terms of cultivating a profession out of it. So whether that's teaching, coaching, trading, whether that's, speaking on stages, it sounds like your story and your journey is guiding you there. Is that fair to say?
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. And you bring up all very valid points. And again, I'm not audacious enough to think just because, I have this story that people want to hear it. But if I can reach one or two people, because again, not everyone's, a fan of yours. Let's be honest. Like there's not any one person who is going to be liked by every single person they meet. Right. There's going to be people who are rooting for you to fail. Unfortunately, some people get gratification out of that, which just really says a lot about them, to be honest. Yeah. But, not everyone's going to be your friend. Not everyone's going to want to see you succeed, all those things. But if you can just eliminate the noise, as people say, and just stay front side focused on what you really want, what your agenda is, what your mission is. And again, you being a military guy, you know what mission based means, and just staying front side focused and doing all those things. It's important, because if you stop off at every little comment, feel like you got to defend yourself and, man, you don't know me. And, it's just a bunch of trash. Right. And it's just a waste of time. So for the people out there, believe me, people who will gravitate to you will do just that. You don't have to worry about the how will come to you. If you just keep doing what you're doing, and if your intent is pure, meaning you genuinely want to create value for people and help people and just help them get through things. Like you said, just a lot of people's anxiety and stress can be mitigated by just simply having a conversation. Again, when I talk to people, I don't talk down to them. I'm like, bro, let's just chat. Like, I guarantee you, I've probably been through something similar, maybe even worse. And even if it's not worse, let me help you what you're getting through. Here's my thoughts. Here's my insight. And if I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, I'll be the first to tell you that too.
Yeah.
Like, there's just plenty of things that I don't know about, but there's also plenty of things that I do know about. So, and again, for me, all we got to do is chat. And I will be the first to tell you, hey, man, I don't know. You're better off talking to somebody else. Or if I feel like I can genuinely provide value or insight, I'll be more than happy to give you that too. So I think, again, like I said a few minutes ago, when you come from a place of experience and understanding as opposed to a place of judgment, because that's the reason why people don't want to chat. That's the reason why people are so bottled up, as you used the term earlier, is because they're so afraid, they're petrified of ridicule and criticism and people's opinions. Why? I don't want to tell anyone that I took this job because people were like, why you take that job? Or people are like, well, why are you dating this person? Like, why are you living in an apartment? You got plenty of money. You could afford a single family home, no problem. Why are you doing that? Why are you driving this car? Like, there's always a thing that someone's going to disagree with when it comes to you and your own personal decisions. So if you stopped off and tried to defend every single one of those, you would never, ever live your own life, ever. And to me, that would just be the greatest waste.
100%. And life is meant to be lived, not wasted. And
right.
there's a lot of times where we do kind of piss away time, and it's a really powerful thing to be able to understand the moment and the value of time. And there's this if you've heard of this before, it's called memento mori. It's a Stoic philosophy. Have you heard of it before?
I've heard of it. I don't know much about it, but I have absolutely heard of it. Yeah, and the power of momentum, for sure.
Yes, and so memento mori says that know that you're mortal, know that you must die, and let that be the driving force to you to live a life well lived. If you were going to die today, would you be happy with your life? And a lot of people die with regret. And a lot of people die with regret around not spending enough time with loved ones or chasing after that dream they had or asking out that guy or girl or whatever it was. There's always these things that kind of stay with people and they're not happy about. And so I think it's important to go after those things. And if you could, live the life you wanted to live, what would you be remembered for? And what would you have done? How would you have been of service to others? And as
Right.
you're starting to, heed the call and plan into this stage of wanting to be of service for other people yourself, and have you started to architect what that would look like for, the near future in terms of advising, coaching, speaking? Like what do you want to be doing based on what you're called to do?
I would love to be able to help people. Now, what form that comes in, I don't know. For me, I would love the idea of just possibly coaching. I would love the idea of public speaking. I know people would automatically just basically kind of clown on that idea, be like, oh, you've never done that before. But like, we've all done something that we've never done before. And then we tap into it. And then either we suck at it and we go do something else, or we become really good at it. It is our passion. It is our calling, but you don't know it until you get into it. Yep. And then life takes off from there. So it's really quite binary, right? It's one or the other. So for me, just the idea of helping people, having a passion to help people, help sidestep some landmines that I've stepped on that can kind of save people some time and some setbacks and just some stress that I experienced. And again, coming from someone, and I hate to reiterate this again, but coming from just a normal person, and Tony Robbins at one time was very just everyday dude. He wasn't the Tony that you see today. Milet, Vaynerchuk, Steve Harvey, Shaq, like all these super successful people, Oprah, all these people who have made their stamp on the world, who are icons in their business. They didn't start out as icons, right? They were clowned on. They were doubted. They were rejected. Like they suffered setbacks. That's what I'm saying. We're all under the human umbrella, right? And there's universal truths about a human being. We're all going to suffer. Again, we all make mistakes. We all lose loved ones. We all have money troubles. We all change jobs. The list of universal things that we all go through is endless. But yet, for some reason, we decide to demonize each other for some of those things just because we didn't do it the way that they're doing. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? 2 years ago, you were in the same position, but yet you have the audacity to make fun of me now? What is going on here? So I think for me, again, the biggest thing is to provide a place of non-judgmental conversation and just be able to relay a message to people. Like kids today, it's obviously a lot different than when we were kids. And I know it sounds very old school to say, because I'm sure every generation can say that. But I'm just glad that there was no social media when I was younger. My ass wouldn't be here today. You know what I mean? So now that in the land of social media, look at what it's done for people like you. It's been a blessing. But for some people who don't use it correctly, it's been a curse. Now, do I think that there's real issues on social media, like cyberbullying and things like that? I absolutely do. And that is a horrible, horrible thing that I would never wish on anyone. But social media also does a lot of great things as well. Facebook, Instagram, you name the platform, it's there.
Yep.
Look at what you're doing. Look at what Aaron does. To be able to do podcasts, to be able to do interviews. You didn't have this back in the 80s, man. You didn't have this back in the 90s. Like the technology today and the ability to reach so many people, just a variety of people is amazing.
Yep.
And for business people like you and Aaron and many others who have your own companies and the advertising, it's priceless. And I, to me, the idea of helping is what matters because people will always remember how you made them feel. Right. And I think a lot of times, again, people just need to know that it's okay. Hey, man, I've been there. It can only be bad for so long. Pick your chin up. And I know it seems like I'm not going to go up to someone who's just experiencing a divorce 2 weeks ago and be like, hey, man, cheer up. Right. That's repulsive. People get the fuck out of my face. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
But for some people, time heals all wounds. Some people leave that, some people don't. And everyone heals at different speeds, whether it be from a divorce, a loss of a loved one, whatever your loss is, or whatever you're suffering through. It's a different time for different people. But I think just honestly, Jesse, people like you and Aaron who are, blazing these trails for people, allowing people like myself and, I'm sure many others as well, just to come on and have a conversation. This is the best, man. I feel like you and I could, just if I ever made it down to the Atlanta area, could go to a local spot, throw back a few and just have some good chat, whether we were on camera or not.
Hell yeah, brother.
Right. So,
Yep.
and that's what I'm saying. It's just about connections. It's about networking. It's about, hey man, and we were talking a little bit before about some of the things I was, looking to get into and that you have connections with from being a CEO, from knowing a lot of people, from networking a lot yourself. Like it's what it's all about. And to me, I'm just, again, so blessed to be in a position where I am. Like I have so much love and support from my family, from my friends. I mean, Heather, my girlfriend, she's the best. I have a beautiful baby boy. Like and the family dynamics, man, like how important that is. And I'm just insanely blessed. And that's why, again, driven by gratitude, obsessed with perspective, because I know firsthand from seeing other people in my life who I know very well and I am very close with, that all of that can change in an instant. So I think, like you always talk about, I heard it in your interview with Aaron, and you made it a very solid point that like being in the moment.
Yeah.
I think that is so huge, so huge. But yeah, and a lot of people, they just dwell on the past, they relive, they rehash, and they kind of kick themselves over and over. And that's just never going to get you anywhere. Right. I mean, why are you going to continue to demonize yourself for something that happened 10 years ago? Like no one gives a shit. So why should you?
What was that quote that you just said? Driven by gratitude, obsessed with perspective.
Yeah, like for me, it's like a mantra. I mean, I just kind of came up with it one day. Again, it is what it is. But for me, I'm genuinely driven by gratitude, and I'm obsessed with perspective. And the reason why I came up with that is because one, not just I really am, but I was forced to. Like I was forced to count my blessings because there was a period of time in my life, unfortunately, that lasted a while where I didn't have a lot of blessings. Right. I mean, I always had a great family. I always had great friends, and I was thankful for those things. But again, professional setbacks, financial setbacks, just struggles like that, just going through some real shit. I was like, you know what? I have this. This area of my life may not be on point right now, but knowing what I have, knowing who I have, the support I have, who I can really turn to, who I can really trust, all those things, again, in addition, most importantly, with my relationship with God, all of that, combined really allowed me to see how great I really do have it. And the things that I were missing or lacking at the time weren't really that big a deal. I didn't want to minimize them, because again, like, and we can talk about money here, like for people who've ever been out of a job, for people who've ever had financial struggles of any kind, all these idiots out there who are like, oh, money's not everything. Well, that's all well and good. But what do you pay your bills with? Hugs? Like bills pay bills. Like money's important. So to demonize the idea of something that we all would love more of is just so hypocritical and ridiculous that I implore people to make as much money as they possibly can. And I don't care if you want to fly private. I don't care if you want to roll up in a Lambo. I don't give a shit what you want to do with your money. Go ahead and make it. If you want to buy a Lambo, or if you want to buy a yacht, or if you want to buy the material things in life that so many people shit on, go and buy it. As long as you're not putting yourself or your family in a financial hole that you can't get out of just because you wanted a Lambo, go do it. Like, why would you not do it? You have the money. And most people who shit on people with money are so jealous of their financial status that if the shoe were on the other foot, they wouldn't listen to anyone telling them, hey, don't go buy this. So again, it's the hypocrisy. It's the double standard that it just makes me laugh.
Narrative of this conversation has a lot of been about the tools that we have at our disposal, and money's a tool. Money's an exchange of exchange of energy, exchange of value, and it's like anything else. What do you do with that tool? A hammer can build a house, or it could tear it down, right? It's right. Like any of these other tools that are out there. It's what you do with them. And so I want to get a gauge. Before we jump off here, I want to get a gauge of any tools that you're using on the daily, whether it's practices, whether it's tools, whether it's, things that you're doing to help that personal development track, whether it's mind, body, spirits, intelligence. What are some of the things you're doing every day to kind of keep the ball moving forward for yourself?
Well, I try to work out every day. I mean, physical fitness is paramount for me, because if you can't put one foot in front of the other, or you don't have the energy to do so, nothing else really matters at that point anyway.
Yep.
So I pray every day. When I wake up, when my feet hit the floor, like I say a daily prayer in the morning, and it's the last thing that I do before my head hits the pillow at night. So to have prayer and, just kind of my conversation with God to be the bookends of each day is extremely important for me. I try to read as many successful stories as possible, whether it be online or, people like yourself who have podcasts. I love listening to podcasts. I love listening to people who get up there and make keynote speeches. who've done one-on-one interviews. Like, again, I don't care whether you're somebody super famous like Oprah, Shaq, Milet, any of those guys, to people like myself, who's just a normal everyday person. So we can all learn something from someone is kind of my philosophy on that. And knowledge is power. And just like money, if some is good, more is better. So what you do with it, that's what's really going to dictate where you go from here. So I pray a lot. I try to read as many positive things as possible. I try to associate with many positive people as possible. I try to laugh a lot. I just do the shit that really makes me happy, man. And in a point where I may be lacking in one area, I try to generate a surplus to kind of balance that out in another area. And it's not to say that I don't focus on the area that I need to work on, but I don't want to focus on it so much to the point where I look and still see nothing. And then I get a feeling of emptiness. I want it to be a feeling of gratitude. Like I get to work out today. I don't got to, I get to. Because there's people out there, man, who are suffering, maybe they've suffered a debilitating injury or who have cancer, unfortunately, or whatever, who would give anything in the world just to do one workout. Yep. So like, what's your excuse, dude? You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I don't want to be built on excuses. Like that's just not a way to live life. So I try to, again, have good conversation. I try to have meaningful conversation, meaningful interactions, meaningful relationships. I want my life to have substance, and I want it to have meaning. As far as abundance, that's what we all strive for, especially in areas of happiness and fulfillment. And, Tony Robbins even said, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. So to me, like if I had millions and millions of dollars and I look forward to, when I do acquire more money, I'm not saying I'm going to be a billionaire by any means, but just the idea of being financially generous. People who have experienced my financial generosity, I don't care whether it's something as simple as paying for a happy hour or paying for a weekend getaway, Venmoing some people, to help with certain bills like that they didn't even ask me to do. Like I just did it because I know the power of having someone help you. I know the power of having someone love you enough to say, hey, I got you. I know you're down right now. I know you feel down, but you're not going to stay down. I got you. Let's get you back on your feet. So again, whether that's financial assistance, giving an ear to listen, a shoulder to cry on, speaking on a stage, interviewing on a podcast, whatever it is, man, I'm all for it. Because I think when people just kind of go through motions and they're just doing something just to do it, that hamster wheel gets tired real quick. So I think when you have passion and fulfillment, it keeps you energized, it keeps you going, and it doesn't really seem like work. It just seems like you're doing what you love to do. And that's the most important thing.
Being of service where you can be and being a good friend, right? And just leaving the world a little bit of a better place with any interaction that you can, whether it's, a warm smile, a supporting conversation, if it's helping somebody else financially, if it's giving people advice where they can kind of alter their life for the better. Those some of the intangible things in life that really make for a beautiful journey. And it sounds like you're on that path and you're doing it for yourself and other people. And, I just want to be one of the first viewers and listeners of this to say thank you so much for the journey that you've been on and for what you're sharing with us, because it sounds like, based on everything you're saying, that you will continue to be of service and of support. And the world needs that. If everybody had the same mentality of showing up for somebody else and also for themselves too, but showing up for somebody else and being of service to that person, we could change the world pretty damn quickly if everybody had that mindset. And I like to believe that we mostly all do as a species, but to see it in action through your conversation today, much love to you, brother. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it, Jesse. Thank you so much for the opportunity, man. And thank you to Aaron as well for connecting us. And it's been a powerful conversation, brother. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for all you do. Congrats on your company. Congrats on the kids. I mean, just everything, man. You're really doing it. I appreciate you. You got a great following. And no doubt that the podcast is going to continue to soar, man. I appreciate you. And hopefully we can do it again soon.
I appreciate the love, brother.